Gentlemen, let's talk about the real elephant in the room, the thing we all notice but pretend isn't rigging the game, pretty privilege, the unspoken cheat code of life. It's not just in clubs, dating apps, or corporate ladders, it's literally baked into our education system. Yep, the world where we're told hard work and brains pay off has been quietly handing out backstage passes to the girls who won the genetic lottery. But what happens when their magic weapon, face-to-face interaction, is taken away? Welcome to the real-life Hunger Games, where looks are your currency and Zoom class is kryptonite for the beautiful. Brace yourselves, this one's gonna sting. The halo effect, when looks are the real GPA. Let's start with the headline shocker. The study revealed that when classrooms went remote during COVID, attractive women's grades dropped like nosedived. But why? Did their ability to write essays or solve equations mysteriously disappear? Of course not. What vanished was the unfair advantage their physical presence gave them. You see, when there's no professor to charm with coy smiles or classmates to mesmerize during group projects, suddenly it's all about actual merit. And surprise, some of these so-called students weren't delivering the goods. But this isn't just an academic scandal, it's a societal blueprint. Think about the Reddit commentary. One user nailed it by pointing out how workplace rock stars, those shining stars who thrived on in-person interactions, suddenly found themselves on the chopping block once offices went remote. Turns out charisma only gets you so far when all you're left with is a KPI spreadsheet and a Zoom camera. And don't get it twisted, this isn't just a male professors falling for the pretty girl issue. The bias crosses genders. Female professors were just as likely to give higher grades to attractive women. Call it subconscious favoritism, call it the halo effect, call it whatever you want. The truth is, human beings are wired to like pretty things. And it's not just professors, it's judges, juries, hiring managers, heck, even TSA agents probably let a pretty face slide through security faster. The subjective grading scam. Now, where does this play out most? Subjective grading. Hard sciences, math, physics, anything that relies on cold, hard answers. Don't care if you've got Kardashian-level cheekbones. Either you can solve for X or you can't. But in the soft sciences, business, economics, literature, that's where the pretty privilege thrives. Essays, presentations, group assignments, anything where the grader's feelings can seep into the score. It's the perfect breeding ground for biases. One Redditor even recounted how their philosophy professor had an obvious cool kids club of attractive students who always seemed to glide by. The kicker? This wasn't just a quirk of that one professor. Studies have shown that attractive students, especially women, benefit disproportionately in subjective environments. Think about it. You're more likely to round up that borderline grade for the student who smiles warmly and seems pleasant, even if their work isn't stellar. It's not limited to academics either. Another Reddit comment highlighted how this dynamic plays out in professional settings. Attractive people, women in particular, are perceived as smarter, more trustworthy, and more competent. This isn't about logic, it's pure, primal psychology. The halo effect makes us conflate beauty with goodness, intelligence, and capability. It's the reason juries are more lenient with attractive defendants and why certain coworkers can coast on charm while others grind away unnoticed. But why doesn't this apply to attractive men? Here's where it gets really interesting. The study found that attractive men's grades didn't drop in remote learning. Why? The theory is that men's beauty premium is tied to traits like confidence and charisma, which can still translate over Zoom. For women, though, the premium seems more tied to in-person interactions, the unspoken chemistry that happens when you're in the same room as someone. Think about this double-edged sword. For men, being attractive might boost their confidence, leading to better participation and networking. For women, attractiveness doesn't just boost their confidence, it becomes their primary currency. Remove the in-person element, and suddenly that currency is worthless. One Redditor nailed it. Attractive women often rely on soft skills and personal connections to navigate subjective environments. Take those away and the cracks start to show. The pretty privilege backlash. And let's not forget the most delicious irony, attractive women complaining about this shift. During the pandemic, social media lit up with rage as these students realized their usual tricks weren't working. As one Redditor's niece hilariously put it, they're not used to not being the center of attention. Imagine spending your whole life being told you're exceptional because people can't look away from your face, only to have that pedestal yanked out from under you. It's like watching a toddler drop their ice cream cone, tragic, yet oddly satisfying. But let's not oversimplify this. The Reddit threads also pointed out that not all attractive women are coasting through life. Some are genuinely smart, hardworking, and deserving of their success. The problem isn't them, it's the system that rewards appearance over substance. The halo effect is a societal disease, not an individual failing. It's why some of the smartest, most capable people get overlooked while less qualified but more attractive individuals rise to the top. If you're ready for part 2, where we dive deeper into the societal implications and the backlash against pretty privilege, part 2, the societal implications of pretty privilege. So, you're telling me the world isn't fair? Shocking. But here's the twist. Pretty privilege isn't just some harmless perk. It's a systemic cheat code that warps everything from education to employment to relationships. And as soon as the curtain of remote learning fell, it exposed just how much smoke and mirrors were holding up the whole act. Let's dig deeper, shall we? Pretty privilege as a social currency. Let's be real, beauty is a currency. It buys you smiles, opportunities, leniency, and yes, even grades. In fact, one Redditor highlighted how attractive people often live in an entirely different world. A world where doors open effortlessly and mistakes are forgiven with a wink and a grin. But what happens when that currency suddenly depreciates? Remote learning became the great equalizer, forcing the education system to judge students on merit rather than magnetism. The psychological underpinnings here are wild. One user pointed out the concept of the halo effect, the tendency to assume that because someone looks good, they must also be good, smarter, kinder, more capable. This isn't just anecdotal, it's been studied extensively. Attach an attractive face to an essay, and professors are more likely to overlook errors or give higher marks. Remove the face, boom, grades plummet. But here's the kicker. This isn't just about education. It's a microcosm of how our entire society operates. Attractive people don't just get better grades. They get better jobs, better treatment in courtrooms, and, let's be honest, better dating options. One Redditor mentioned how even in the workplace, attractive coworkers often coast by on charm, while the rest of us grind in obscurity. It's like the universe handed them a cheat code. Up, up, down, down, left, right, be a pretty. The workplace parallel. The parallels to the corporate world are impossible to ignore. Remember the comment about layoffs during remote work? When offices went remote, those who thrived on charisma and face-to-face dynamics suddenly found themselves exposed. Without water-cooler politics and in-person charm to lean on, their rock star reputations crumbled. Meanwhile, the quiet, competent workers finally had a chance to shine. But the workplace isn't immune to bias either. Studies show that attractive people, especially women, are often assumed to be more capable, even in roles that require no visual interaction. And let's not forget the flip side. Unattractive people are often overlooked or underestimated, no matter how skilled they are. It's an uphill battle that most people don't even realize they're fighting. One particularly sharp Redditor pointed out how this bias even extends to something as objective as teaching evaluations. Male students consistently rate attractive female professors higher regardless of their teaching quality. The halo effect strikes again. The gendered dichotomy. This is where things get spicy. The study highlighted a stark difference between how attractiveness impacts men and women. For men, being attractive often correlates with traits like confidence, leadership, and social influence. These are skills that can translate across mediums, even on Zoom. For women, however, attractiveness is often tied to their ability to form personal connections and command attention in a room, or take away the room, and suddenly their edge disappears. Redditors didn't hold back on this point. One user sarcastically remarked that attractive women suddenly realizing their privilege had limits was like watching a bird hit a glass window. It's harsh, but it underscores a brutal truth. Many attractive women have been socialized to lean on their looks because society rewards them for it. When that advantage is stripped away, they're left floundering in a system they're not equipped to navigate. And let's not ignore the evolutionary psychology at play. Humans are hardwired to associate beauty with positive traits. It's why attractive defendants get lighter sentences and why a pretty face can sway an entire jury. This isn't just sexism, it's biology working against us in ways we're barely conscious of. The pretty privilege crisis now. Let's talk about the backlash. When grades for attractive women tanked during remote learning, social media was flooded with complaints. "It's not fair," they cried, and honestly, they're right, it's not fair, but not for the reasons they think. One Redditor's comment stood out: "Attractive women are finally being judged on merit, and they can't handle it." Ouch! But there's a grain of truth there. For many, this was their first experience of a world where they didn't have an unspoken advantage. And it's not just about grades, it's about their entire identity. When you've been told your whole life that your looks are your greatest asset, what happens when that asset stops paying dividends? But here's the twist. This isn't just a female issue. Attractive men face their own version of this crisis. While their confidence and charisma might carry them further in remote environments, they're still subject to the same biases and expectations. The difference is that society has conditioned men to develop other skills alongside their looks, whereas women are often pigeonholed into relying solely on their appearance. Part 3. Unmasking the System, Pretty Privilege and Society's Deeper Problems. Pretty privilege isn't just a surface-level perk, it's a systemic virus. It's ingrained in education, employment, the justice system, and even how we see ourselves. But here's the real question. If beauty opens doors, who's stuck outside and why? The systematic nature of pretty privileged society loves to paint itself as a meritocracy: work hard and you'll succeed. But let's be honest, meritocracy is a myth, and pretty privilege is one of the biggest reasons why. The Reddit threads we explored hammered this point home, exposing how attractiveness can grease the wheels of every system, from academics to the workplace. It's not just an individual bias, it's a collective one, and it's everywhere. One Redditor nailed it when they said, "Attractive people live on a different planet." They weren't exaggerating. Whether it's an office promotion or a university grade, the default assumption is that beauty equals competence. This assumption isn't just problematic, it's dangerous. It creates a system where the unattractive are perpetually underestimated, while the attractive are overvalued. When you're judged on your looks instead of your skills, your fate is no longer in your hands. The education angle? Let's break down how this plays out in education. One fascinating study, highlighted in the Reddit threads, involved blind grading. When student names and faces were removed, grades shifted dramatically. Attractive students, particularly women, saw their grades drop, while less conventionally attractive students often improved. The takeaway? Bias isn't just a bug in the system, it is the system. But the real kicker came during remote learning. Suddenly, the charm of a smile or a well-placed compliment couldn't sway the professor. Grades for attractive women plummeted, especially in subjective courses like business and economics, where discretion plays a bigger role. Meanwhile, hard sciences like math and physics, with their more objective grading criteria, remained unaffected. This wasn't just a wake-up call for the students, it was a wake-up call for the educators. It exposed how deeply ingrained these biases are and how little we've done to address them. Pretty privilege in the workplace. The workplace isn't immune to these dynamics either. In fact, it might be even worse. One Redditor commented on how remote work revealed just how much some coworkers relied on charm and charisma to maintain their status. When offices went virtual, the popular kids suddenly found themselves outperformed by the quiet, competent ones. But here's the twist. Attractive people aren't just coasting on their looks. They're also benefiting from a deeply ingrained social bias that associates beauty with trustworthiness, competence, and leadership. This bias doesn't just affect hiring and promotions. It influences every interaction, from meetings to mentorships. And it's not just men falling for it. Women are just as likely to favor attractive colleagues, creating a self-reinforcing loop. The justice system parallel. If you think this bias stops at the workplace, think again. The justice system is another arena where pretty privilege rears its head. Studies show that attractive defendants receive lighter sentences, are less likely to be convicted, and are even perceived as less guilty than their less attractive counterparts. It's the halo effect on steroids, and it's a stark reminder of how much our perceptions shape reality. One Redditor shared a chilling anecdote about a professor who openly admitted to giving attractive students better grades, saying they didn't even need to submit assignments. While this level of blatant favoritism is rare, the subtler unconscious biases are far more pervasive and far more dangerous. The gender double standard. Here's where things get really spicy. The study highlighted a fascinating gender dichotomy. While attractive women saw their grades plummet during remote learning, attractive men's grades remained stable. Why? Because society associates male attractiveness with traits like confidence and competence, qualities that translate well to virtual environments. One Redditor joked, "If you're ugly, just work harder." But that joke underscores a bitter truth. Attractive men are often rewarded for their perceived potential, while attractive women are judged primarily on their ability to connect and engage in person. When you take away the social context, their value in the eyes of the system diminishes. And let's not ignore the role of social conditioning here. Women are often taught to prioritize their appearance because society rewards them for it. Men, on the other hand, are encouraged to develop other skills alongside their looks. This creates a vicious cycle where women are set up to fail the moment their looks are no longer an asset. The long-term implications? The Reddit threads weren't just a collection of anecdotes, they were a mirror reflecting society's deep-seated biases. One user pointed out how pretty privilege creates a sense of entitlement among the attractive, while simultaneously breeding resentment among the less attractive. This dynamic doesn't just affect individuals, it shapes entire systems, perpetuating inequality at every level. The real tragedy? Pretty privilege is ephemeral. As one Redditor brutally put it, the wall is real. Looks fade, and when they do, those who've relied on them often find themselves unprepared for a world that suddenly demands merit over magnetism. It's a harsh reality, but one that underscores the importance of addressing these biases head-on. Part 4. The Road to Redemption, Fixing a Broken System. If pretty privilege is the cheat code of life, how do we patch the game? And more importantly, what happens when the pretty players lose their edge? Let's talk solutions and consequences. The first step, admitting there's a problem. The Reddit threads and research paint a bleak picture. Our society runs on superficiality, with biases so ingrained we don't even notice them. But recognizing the problem is half the battle. If we want a world where merit matters more than mascara, we need to start making systemic changes. One recurring suggestion on Reddit was blind grading. This isn't just a pipe dream, it's a proven solution. Studies show that removing names and faces from the grading process eliminates a significant portion of bias. As one user put it, if professors can't be trusted to grade fairly, maybe they shouldn't see who's submitting the work. It's a simple fix that could be applied not just in classrooms but in workplaces too. Imagine blind job applications where resumes are stripped of names, photos, and even educational backgrounds. You're judged purely on your skills and experience. It's not perfect, but it's a start. Addressing the root causes of pretty privilege isn't just about looks. It's about power, perception, and the social structures that uphold them. If we're serious about change, we need to dig deeper. 1. Education reform. The classroom is where these biases often take root. One Redditor pointed out how coursework and subjective assignments disproportionately favor those who can charm their way into higher grades. The solution? More objective assessments and transparency in grading criteria. And let's not forget the teachers. Bias training isn't just for HR departments, it's essential for educators too. If we can teach kids calculus, we can teach their teachers how to recognize and counteract their own prejudices. 2. Workplace overhaul. The office isn't just where pretty privilege thrives, it's where it evolves. Remote work has already shaken up traditional power dynamics, revealing who's truly competent and who's just coasting on charisma. To keep this momentum going, companies need to embrace transparency in promotions, pay scales, and performance evaluations. But there's another layer to this: leadership. As one Redditor hilariously noted, the C-suite is basically a pageant for tall, good-looking dudes. If we want real change, we need to diversify who gets to make decisions. And that starts with recognizing our biases in hiring and promoting leaders. 3. The media's role. Let's be real. The media feeds the beast of pretty privilege. From Instagram filters to Hollywood casting, we're bombarded with the message that beauty equals worth. It's time for a cultural shift. Representation matters, but not just in terms of race or gender. We need to celebrate diverse body types, facial features, and even those quirks we've been taught to hide. The harsh reality of the wall, we need to talk about the wall. Redditors weren't shy about bringing this up, the brutal reality that pretty privilege has an expiration date. For women, it's often tied to aging. For men, it's a loss of physical fitness or confidence. Either way, the crash is hard and fast. One user shared a chilling anecdote. A formerly stunning coworker who gained weight and aged out of her prime found herself sidelined in meetings and ignored in social settings. Her skills hadn't changed, but her perceived value had plummeted. This isn't just a wake-up call for those who rely on their looks, it's a reminder for everyone else. Skills, character, and competence outlast any Instagram-worthy smile. If we want a society that values substance over style, we need to stop worshiping at the altar of aesthetics. The backlash when the system strikes back change isn't easy, and it rarely comes without resistance. Pretty privilege has beneficiaries who are deeply invested in maintaining the status quo. As one Redditor sarcastically quipped, "Of course the unions hate reform. How else would Karen keep her cushy teaching job without being called out for favoritism?" Expect pushback from all sides. Some will argue that eliminating biases will hurt morale or that subjective assessments are part of the charm of certain professions. Others will cry foul, accusing reformers of being jealous, bitter, or worse. But here's the thing, the pushback is proof that the system is rigged. If fairness threatens your success, you were never competing on a level playing field to begin with. The role of individuals' systemic change takes time, but that doesn't mean individuals can't make a difference. If you're attractive and benefiting from this bias, use your privilege to uplift others. Share opportunities, mentor those overlooked by the system, and acknowledge the advantages you've had. And for those who've been burned by pretty privilege, keep pushing, build your skills, sharpen your expertise, and refuse to be defined by how others perceive you. As one Redditor wisely noted, pretty privilege fades, but competence lasts a lifetime. Final thoughts. The new playbook, the Reddit threads, weren't just a commentary on pretty privilege, they were a roadmap for navigating and dismantling it. The message is clear. The system is flawed, but it's not unfixable. With the right tools, attitudes, and actions, we can create a world where merit truly matters. But let's not get it twisted. This isn't about erasing beauty or punishing the attractive. It's about leveling the playing field so everyone has a fair shot, regardless of how symmetrical their face is. So, what's the takeaway here? Simple. Stop coasting, start building. Because when the game changes, and it always does, the only thing that will matter is whether you're ready to play on your own terms.